Senator, we've heard a lot about Senator McCain this week. What's something people would be surprised to learn about John McCain?
God, that's a good question. Surprised to know. I've never been stumped before. How kind he was.
How did that manifest itself?
Paying tremendous amount of attention when you needed it the most. That he could be a handful, he could rip your head off, all on and on and on, but he could be incredibly kind just by picking up the phone, making sure that you knew he was there for you, and walking you through it, holding your hand, guiding you sort of out of whatever wilderness you were in. I don't think he gets much credit at all for that, but if you've been on the receiving end of it, you'd appreciate it.
What would he say if he was calling you now?
Buck up. Knock that crap off. You're embarrassing yourself. Shut up. I think he'd say thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just, hey, thank you for being my friend, but kind of knock his crap off.
The sentimental.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's, you said in the Christmas play he was Scrooge. Perfect character, perfect casting. Just be yourself.
Do you still have the instinct to take out your phone and call him?
As people ask me what's it like, yes, I literally, yesterday afternoon when I saw something that come across the cable networks, I literally almost picked up my phone. So I don't know who in your life that you talk to about business matters or almost share things with about your hopes and your dreams and your business activities. It was John for me. I mean, I can't think of anything I've done legislatively that wasn't with him, usually being his wingman. And that's gone. And that's going to be the hardest thing, is just not being able to pick up the phone and saying, what do we do? Or here's my idea.
Yeah, but well, for me, it's my parents, the people that
my dad was a huge influence in my life. My mom was the sweetest person I ever knew. I lost him when I was 21. So I focused on my sister who was 13. So what's for me is to focus on my job, being the senator from South Carolina, trying to help a president that's difficult to help at times, to make the right decisions, and keep that McCain approach to America alive. He had the most romantic view of our country. He believed we were destined to shape history. He did not believe it was a burden to lead the free world. He believed it was an opportunity, and it was our destiny, and an optimistic view about America. I want to keep that.
If you can't talk to him, what do you hear him saying in your head?
Steady. Keep pushing. Be careful, but steady. Stay involved. Don't give up. John was on the forestall. His plane, a famous picture of him jumping off the nose of his plane, got hit by a missile on an adjacent plane, a kind of electrical short that shot the missile through John's plane, then had the largest loss of life since World War II on a naval aircraft carrier. He could have easily gone home because he was wounded. Well, he went to the Oriskany, joined a naval aviation squadron, had the highest losses of any squadron in Vietnam, suffered for 5.5 years, could have come home early, said no, then led the effort with John Kerry to reconcile between the two nations. That's the kind of John McCain I love and I respect. Stay in the fight, but also have a forgiving heart.
Did you get a chance to say goodbye to him?
Yeah, I did. This is funny. I went out when he had this surgery, intestinal surgery. I didn't think I'd see him again, and he said, all right, boy, keep the legacy going. And that wiped me out. And so we talked, but I went out the next time. We watched The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, and trust me, if you had recorded the commentary, you would have played it really late at night, like 3 a.m. in Guam. Very salty, very John. And then that last night, I sat there and just held his hand, and we talked a lot about our trips and, stay in the fight, keep it going. I went out about 2 weeks ago, I guess. And Thursday night I got there, and when I walked in, he just smiled and held my hand, but really didn't say anything. And Friday was a bad day. But yeah, something told me to go. I was planning to go this week. And I found a hole in my schedule and says, no, I need to go. The one thing I learned about my parents, you just assume things are going to be one way. Don't take anything for granted. I am so glad I went. That smile and holding my hand was worth everything.
What did you tell him when you said goodbye to him?
You did good. You exceeded every expectation your dad and your grandfather had for you. You did right by your country, you did right by your friends, and I am better for having met you. And he just squeezed really hard.
If you back in the Senate could pass some legislation, not to honor him or name this building, what would you pass? What would you try and get passed?
The immigration. He worried to his dying day about getting me involved in immigration, because I'm from South Carolina. The upside of immigration reform is pretty small in my state. In Arizona, it makes a lot of sense. He's right there on the border. But I jumped in that immigration fight. And, I was in every gang he was in with Ted Kennedy, the gang of this and the gang of that. I'd like to see immigration reform done just to show you and do hard things. And I talked about that. I am 100% committed to repairing our broken borders, to increasing legal immigration, being fair to the 11 million who are non-crooks, giving them a place to stay on our terms, learn our language, pay a fine for the crime they committed, but solving a hard problem. I want to get that done because it meant a lot to John to fix a broken immigration system on national security. Keep that voice that the only way we can be safe here is affect the lives of others over there. That if you ignore what goes on over there, it always comes back to hit you here. That America's safest when America is displaying her values to the world.
Let me ask you a little bit more about your time with the senator. You traveled all over the world together.
Yes, every place no one else wanted to go, we went.
You were never anywhere very long.
No, there was a rule you couldn't have 2 meals in the same country. This man, John McCain, had more energy than 10 men. The doctor told me in Sydney that he had 8 times the tolerance for pain of the average person. But he had a schedule that would literally kill you, but he was curious. We were in one country, I can't remember where it was, and he read a news article about 500 people were killed in a protest in the neighboring country. He says, we got to go. I said, why? Does it need to be 5:02? We got to go over there and help these people. We packed our bags and we left.
Favorite meal? What did you do? Was there a...
Oh, it's easy. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That was lunch. Supper was grilled cheese and tomato soup. Simple man. But we went to Afghanistan and Iraq about 45 times that I can remember. Now, why did we go? He says, you can't learn a thing here. You got to go where they're at. You cut through the BS. The soldier will tell you the truth. You just got to give him a chance to tell you the truth. We were on the ground in Iraq. We could see that it wasn't working. It wasn't a few dead enders. He told President Bush, this is not working. John turned out to be right. He stood behind the surge when nobody else would because he believed it would work. Afghanistan, he understood that if you send in troops and announce their departure at the same time, it's not going to work out. He told President Obama, if you leave Iraq, you'll regret it. I am going to try to be that voice to President Trump, and it's up to him to listen. But he taught me one thing. If you want to learn about the world, you have to go see it. If you want to understand a war, you have to go where it is.
Those naturalization ceremonies on July 4th, you would...
Yeah.
What were those like?
Let's say, so this is the story about John that I remember above all else. We were 5th in a 4-person race running for president in 2007. He'd been the front runner, lousy front runner, ran out of money. The Straight Talk Express had no wheels. Thinking about dropping out. Written off for politically dead. Petraeus invites John and myself to come to speak to the troops in July of 2007, just when the surge was starting. Everybody had written off Iraq except General Petraeus and all those under his command, and John and myself. So here's the ceremony. We're in Saddam's old palace. It's July the 4th. Must be 300 degrees in the place. A couple thousand soldiers hanging off the rafters. On one side, you have about 600 people re-enlisting in a fight they could have easily gotten out of at the battlefield itself. Then on the other side, you have about 300 people becoming citizens in an expedited fashion because they served in a war zone, served in the military. You can get citizenship earlier. The front row of the citizenship group, there were 2 empty chairs with boots. John said, what's this? They got killed the day before. He got up, John did, incredibly hot, incredibly crowded, and gave a speech about our country and what we were fighting for. I wanted to re-enlist. And of the 2,000 soldiers, every one of them got a photo. We stayed there for hours. We get on the C-130, we head back, hot as hell, and he says, if they're not going to quit, I'm not going to quit. And that changed the course of the 2008 primary.
You had some handwritten notes yesterday that you were reading from on the floor of the Senate. What were you thinking about when you were writing it?
I looked at his life as an after-action report. So when a military operation's over, when a pilot comes back from a mission, they debrief. Here's what I learned. I thought about all the things that I learned, like imperfection and honor are always in competition. And it's a struggle for every human being on the planet to try to honorably handle their imperfections. That success and failure are different sides of the same coin. He had both. He learned more from his failures than he did his successes. That fighting and forgiving and healing all work together. This is the man that could have left the war but stayed. This is the man that opened up peace after the war was over. This is the man that lost his biggest dream of all, to be president, and turned around on the night of his greatest personal defeat, showed the country how to heal. His concession speech was the single biggest contribution I think John has made to democracy. Because in developing world, democracy is new. The idea of picking your leaders is new. Holding them accountable is new. The idea of transferring power peacefully is new. I cannot tell you how many world leaders have told me about the concession speech. We went over to the Mideast, and he said, John taught us how to lose. In the Mideast, you don't get much for losing, usually killed. So democracy is about the ability to lose and survive. And John's speech that night allowed this country to heal. It could have went the other way.
What did John McCain draw out of people?
Your best. And if you weren't willing to give it, you didn't last long. He had a group he traveled with. He drew out your ideas. The thing that I wish I could show people is on these long trips, we'd have a lot of new senators, new members of Congress, and somewhere during the trip we'd all come up to John's cabin, and he would go around one by one and say, what's your takeaway? Trying to draw out of people, sort of make them analyze the moment. And every time you were with John, you had access to the best of the best. There's nobody that would not meet John McCain because he's a rock star for America. The reason so many people throughout the world are grieving him is because he represented the best in our country in their eyes. And he made sure that the youngest, most junior member there got a chance to engage. So he brought out the best in you, I think. He certainly brought out the best in me, and when he challenged you, you could say, well, at least I'm not doing any more than he's done. He never asked you to do something he wouldn't do.
You said, if we all like John so much, why don't we be more like him, including me? Yeah. What does that mean?
It means that I can't drift back into, the easy moments of political compromise is a good thing. Avoidance is a bad thing. John ran to the sound of the gunfire. When he got there, he was ready to fight, but he's also ready to end the war. What I've got to do is always try to remember the path least traveled is usually the right one. Be patient and just stay engaged.
You've named a number of things that his legacy calls out in you. You've talked about immigration. You've talked about going to places and reminding them that human dignity matters.
Yes, above all else.
You've talked about how the concession speech, it could have gone the other way. He sought to bind up the nation, not try to divide people, and that compromise is a good thing. A number of people find none of those qualities in the current president.
Yeah, so the challenge for President Trump is to be successful. Compromise. If you want an immigration bill, you're going to have to compromise. I think the president's instincts on immigration are pretty good, but the people around him don't have compromise. They can't spell compromise when it comes to immigration. So if you want to be successful, you're going to have to do the hard work of getting your hands dirty, getting people in a room, and giving something to them because they need something too. The president can do this. He is a deal maker, but the people around him, not so much. John saw a campaign finance system that was broken and wanted to fix it. He believes climate change is real. He just doesn't want to ruin the economy and trying to fix it. So if the president wants to be successful, he's going to have to do those things that John McCain was known for.
But people would say the real disconnect between your effort to try to work with the president and your friendship with John McCain is people say all the praise that's being heaped on John McCain does not apply to the president, and that is something that Lindsey Graham should be incapable of being okay with.
Here's what I've learned. If you really believe country first, then it's not about you, it's about your country. I am the senator from South Carolina. I am a Republican. Donald Trump, I didn't vote for him, I ran against him, I lost. When John McCain lost Obama, not only did he concede gracefully, he actually met the man to try to help him. Sometimes so, sometimes not. I am going to do everything I can to help President Trump, and when he's wrong, I will say so. I am not buying into the idea that to honor John McCain, you have to withdraw from America led by Donald Trump. I would encourage President Trump to keep doing what he's doing on foreign policy, rebuilding the military, taking Iran to task, destroying ISIS. You're doing a lot of good things, Mr. President. You want to get an immigration bill passed, you can do it, but you're going to have to tell some people around you that compromise is going to be part of the agenda here. Some people it bothers. It bothers me greatly when the president says things about John McCain. It pisses me off to no end, and I let the president know it. But I don't have the luxury of playing like he's not president. I don't have the ability to withdraw from the fight because I'm in it. And I'll tell you what John told me. Help him where you can, just don't get caught up in the BS.
So John McCain has Barack Obama and George Bush speaking at his memorial service, two people about whom he used to have extremely bitter feelings during the campaign.
That's exactly right.
And so is working with the president more like John McCain than people may know? If he was able to work with those two people he felt bitterly about, your working with President Trump seems in that same spirit.
Well, John never felt bitter about me trying to help the president. He felt bitter about the president, the things he was said, that some of the things he did that he thought hurt the country. I don't know what time would have held. They had a dinner with Cindy, and it was good. You know, President offered Cindy a job to help with human trafficking, and Cindy is just completely terrific person and stood by John. But what the president, the way he's handled the passing of John was disturbing. We finally got it right. I just don't know what to tell people other than I'm not going to quit. I am not going to give up on the idea of working with this president. The best way I can honor John McCain is help my country. And the best way I can help my country is to try to convince my president to do the right thing by our men and women in uniform, to bring the country together, not tear it apart. And if I fail, it won't be because I didn't try.
Did you call the president and tell him to bring the flag back down to half-staff?
No, but I called some people around him, and some of this was a bit of a miscommunication. Some of it was a lost opportunity. And I want to spend this coming days talking about John, but I'm going right back at it. The president called me yesterday, and very quick statement, you did right by your friends. I said, well, I'll see you soon. We got to figure out what to do in Syria. John McCain had it right when it came to Syria. If you want to take another shot at immigration, count me in. If you want to do something big in Africa, I think the time is right. So the bottom line is, as long as I'm around, I'm going to try to help the president where I can.
What could the president learn from John McCain?
That fighting ferociously and earning people's respect are not inconsistent.
What does that mean?
It means that how you play the game does matter. It's not just about winning and losing. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some. And you can knock somebody's head off, and John did it. John was very hard on his colleagues. But the one thing he had going for him is that he would let it go. And when you needed John the most, he was there, even if at the moment he hated your guts politically. But he never abandoned a colleague over a political issue. He realized that he was part of this Senate family. What I would tell the president, you've got a lot of people you think are treating you unfairly, fight back. But you're going to have to be a big man in a big office. John McCain was a big man, worthy of a big country. Mr. President, you need to be the big man that the presidency requires.
Let me ask you a couple of News of the day questions. We've got Don McCain, the president's counsel, is leaving. What do you think about that?
I think he did a terrific job, heroic job at times, quite frankly. If I were the president, I'd pick somebody that understood the legislative branch, because if the Democrats take over the House, then he's going to be subpoenaed to death and investigated to death. So your next White House counsel better have a good skill set when it comes to dealing with Congress.
So are you suggesting he kind of go on a war footing with that anticipation in the House maybe?
I think he needs somebody who understands the interaction between the presidency and the legislative branch, defending the presidency when you should, but being able to work when you have to.
Chuck Grassley said, don't let him go.
You know, that's all my colleagues like Sessions. I mean, like, listen, I'm not asking him to fire Sessions, but clearly he doesn't like Sessions. You know, it's his counsel, not mine. I'm not going to tell the president, you got to have this lawyer forever, you got to have this, attorney general forever. I would just tell him, if you're going to let Don McCain go, find somebody as capable of Don McCain, because he did a good job for you. And I hope you understand what's coming your way. If you don't have a very competent, capable White House counsel, you'll live to regret it.
Some people worry that getting rid of McCain means fewer people around him reminding him of the constraints of the presidency, reminding him to be a big man, which you suggested.
Well, as long as I'm around, I'll remind him of how this game played. I've been involved in the impeachment of Clinton. I understand the process pretty well. Here's what I'll tell the president. There is no scenario where you can end this investigation, the Mueller investigation, through some political intrigue and survive. That's the end of you. The only person in America that can clear Donald Trump is Mueller.
Let me ask you about, do you think he'd fire Attorney General Sessions today if he could?
I think he wants an attorney general that he has a better working relationship with. And to those in my business who say you're stuck with Jeff Sessions, I like Jeff Sessions. But I mean, how smart do you have to be to understand this is not working? Can we find a new attorney general that's competent and capable, that the president would have confidence in, but also pledges to protect Mueller? Yeah, I think so.
Here's the question about Sessions. The president's real beef with him is that he recused himself. You've said it was okay for him to, that was the right thing to do.
He had no choice.
Right. So here's what confuses people about your position on Sessions. If Sessions did the right thing by recusing himself, and that's what got the president angry, when you say, well, the relationship is broken, people would normally expect you to say, Jeff Sessions did the right thing, we should praise him for doing the right thing.
A year ago, I said if you fired Jeff Sessions, they'd be wholly hell to pay, because Jeff recused himself, Trump blew up and went kind of crazy about it. And I said, wait a minute, Jeff had to. If you fire him for this, then it'll ruin your presidency. Mueller's investigation is very mature. The problems with Attorney General Sessions are deeper than recusal. I'm not going to give you a laundry list. There's nothing unethical here. But the problems between the White House and the president and Attorney General Sessions go well beyond the recusal. I hope they can repair these problems, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. The Department of Justice needs a voice that people in the White House will listen to. The Department of Justice needs leadership, and the president needs a cabinet he's confident in. None of that is inconsistent with Mueller doing his job as far as I'm concerned.
So you think the president has cause outside of the investigation to fire Jeff Sessions?
I think you serve at the pleasure of the president, and I think the removing of Jeff Sessions is deeper than just the recusal problem.
But serving at the pleasure of the president means the president could fire you if he didn't like your haircut. I mean,
truly.
But do you think is there a substantive basis?
Yeah, I think the immigration issue about the whole family was poorly handled. The zero tolerance probably, I don't know where that came from. And I think that sort of blindsided the president. The bottom line is this relationship is not working. It's not good for the Department of Justice. I have nothing against Jeff Sessions. I think he's a fine man. I like a lot of what he's done as Attorney General, but he's not my Attorney General. To my colleagues here, what is it about us that says you've got to be stuck with Jeff Sessions the rest of your political life because it may be hard for us to find a new replacement?
Well, I think they're saying don't get rid of him because
I'm saying you can't do anything before the election, but I'm not going to tell the president you're stuck with this cabinet person for the rest of your life, political life, because it will be hard on me is not a good answer.
Do you think there was some reporting in the paper that his lawyers told him, don't get rid of Sessions until the Mueller report comes out?
That would be probably the smart thing to do if you want a new attorney general. The problem with replacing the attorney general is the Mueller investigation. I don't know how long it's going to take. Mr. Mueller's listening, just keep doing what you're doing. You know, you just do your job, be fair by the president. I'm sure you will be. But for the country's sake, we need an attorney general that can work with the White House. We need somebody at the Department of Justice can lead the organization effectively. And after the election, if Mueller's report's nowhere near being done and the president wants to pick somebody else, the burden on the president will be find somebody that we all have confidence in, accept the answer to the question, will you protect Mueller, being yes. And if you're willing to do those two things, you might get a new attorney general. If you're not, you probably won't.
Let me ask you about the Mueller investigation. You said that at the end of the day, if there is collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians, that'll be it for me. Anything else will be just noise.
Yeah.
But you said you have faith in Mueller.
I do.
So if Mueller finds something else and it's not collusion.
But then he'll act on it.
Right, but then that wouldn't be noise. That would be from Mueller and therefore
So
valid.
the question for me has always been, I've always been concerned about what Russia did. I'm very concerned about what they're up to now. What would be a breaking point for me if there is credible evidence that the Trump campaign worked with the Russian intelligence services through WikiLeaks or other organizations to benefit from the theft of the Democratic National Committee or Podesta's emails. That would be colluding with a foreign power, whether it's a crime or not. That is a non-starter. That would end it all for me. I don't know about his business dealings. I don't know what he and Michael Cohen did, but that's what I'm focused on. Is there any evidence of collusion?
But outside of your focus about the Russians, you are a lawyer, and so when the Southern District of New York basically has the president engaged with Michael Cohen in a plea deal, that's not nothing for somebody who knows about the law, right?
No, I mean, now where this goes, I don't know. But what started Mueller's investigation was their interaction between the Trump campaign and Russia. I haven't seen any, and I say this as a joke, but it's kind of a half of a joke. To collude, you got to sit down, come up with a plan, and stick with it. Trump's not good at that.
But here's, I guess, what I'm trying to figure out is some people hear you say, look, it's either collusion or that's it. And they think what you're saying.
Well, it depends on what the other stuff is.
Okay. Yeah. Because as a former impeachment manager, imagine if somebody said, it's either Whitewater, and if it's not about Whitewater, that's it. No reason to look into anything else.
That's a good question. I'm the one impeachment manager that voted against impeachment based on lying under oath about the sexual relationship with Monica Lewinsky. In my view, most people would protect themselves and their family, lie about an embarrassing event. What got me was turning the legal system upside down. Every sexual harassment lawsuit's about sex, hiding the evidence, coaching people to lie, went to the heart and soul of the rule of law, but the actual misconduct of the president and Ms. Lewinsky, to me, was not, I wasn't going to impeach him for that.
But Lindsey Graham recognizes that an investigation may start here and ultimately be cause for...
100%.
So that could be possible in the Mueller case,
We'll see what he finds, absolutely.
But you're not just saying it's either collusion or nothing. If he finds something else, it'd be worth
I'm saying that the
looking
purpose of Mueller's investigation was collusion. We'll see what he finds. But it's got to be something worthy of removing a president for before you get any interest by Republicans to do anything.
You said when you're an impeachment manager, and I'm wondering if this is still your standard, impeachment is not about punishment. Impeachment is about cleansing the office. Impeachment is about restoring honor and integrity to the office. Does that still feel like a standard?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, nobody listened to me 20 years ago. All of a sudden, I'm right. The people who were praising John the most in 2008 called him, mentally unstable, and his campaign was run like George Wallace. You just have to get over all this stuff. But yeah, impeachment is not about solving a crime. Impeachment is about, and I did say this, it's the political death penalty into the Constitution. And I thought President Clinton did too much to undermine the rule of law too long. But it did start about Whitewater, and it wound up being about interfering in a sexual harassment lawsuit. This started about Russia. We'll see what it ends with.
So I think one of the things, you know this, you're getting grief, and people are saying, well, he's working with Donald Trump, and he's changing his standard. But it sounds like you're keeping the same standard you've always had.
Yeah, what I'm doing is saying, I have no idea what Mueller found. So many people want to impeach the guy before anything happens, and some people literally would never hold him accountable. My view is let Mueller do his job. John, I'll tell you when the Mueller report is out. I've got one goal. Let Mr. Mueller finish his report without political interference. And if you need a new Attorney General to make the Department of Justice work more effectively, I'm willing to try to accommodate the president there with the understanding Mr. Mueller gets to complete his job.
Last question. We're sitting in the Russell Senate Office building. Should it be the John McCain Senate Office building?
I think we need I don't know. I named the Capitol after the guy. It'd be John McCain, D.C. I want to see what the family thinks. One thing struck me about all this. Let's get a group, share ideas. What would be the best way to honor John? There's probably many ways. But the Capitol Visitor Center, he hated that place. It turned out to be marvelous. It cost like $1 billion. But when you wait to go to see the Capitol, you have this visitor center where you learn about the history of our country. What if it's the first thing you saw was the life of John McCain? What if it was the John McCain Capitol Visitor Center? That would be perfect in this regard. It would be an educational moment for young people to know that men like John McCain existed. Then they'll find out about other men and women that made this place truly great, and it would annoy the hell out of him. So it'd be my way of getting back at him.
Senator Graham, thank you.
Thank you.